Starbucks, the tragedy and miracle comeback of the company. There are a few defining moments in our lives that are unique to each of us. One of those moments came at the age of 7 for Howard Schultz, the mastermind behind Starbucks' empire. His father had recently been fired from his delivery job after slipping and falling on ice. Broke his hip and ankle. The family had no medical insurance, no savings, and no hope at the time. Today, Howard Schultz is a multi-billionaire who is responsible not only for transforming the coffee industry, but also several other industries that most people are unaware of, but to understand how a simple coffee shop can become a global brand. We need to look at Starbucks' 4 stages, and it all starts in the 1960s. Gordon Bauer, while traveling throughout Europe, he ordered a cappuccino in a small cafe in Rome, and it tasted different, much better. When he returned from his trip, most Americans drank cheap instant coffee or low-quality coffee from diners. Gordon shared his experience with 2 friends, and they decided to try to bring higher quality coffee to American markets. This is the first Starbucks, a small shop with no large plants. It first opened on the Seattle seawall in 1971. However, it was not as you imagine. The original Starbucks store sold bags of high-quality coffee beans as well as the equipment needed to make coffee at home, but they did not make or serve drinks in the actual store. Growth was slow but consistent. By 1981, they had 4 locations in Seattle. And the coffee was selling well, so well that they caught the attention of Howard Schultz, who had managed to build a career for himself despite growing up very poor and having difficulties with his father losing his job through hard work. It hadn't been an easy road. He'd even had to sell his blood to pay for college. However, by 1981, Howard had become the vice president of a company. It just so happened that they were one of Starbucks' suppliers. This is how Howard Schultz discovered Starbucks. He was intrigued by the number of orders this small coffee company was receiving and went down to one of their Seattle locations to see for himself. He tried their coffee and was instantly hooked. That he decided he wanted to work for Starbucks and reached out to the 3 men who founded the company to see if they would hire him. But Howard was the only one who thought Howard joining Starbucks was a good idea. How it all started. It was Howard's turn to visit Italy, and he followed in the footsteps of Gordon, the original Starbucks founder. He admired the Italian way of doing things, but unlike Gordon, who adored the taste of the coffee in the way it was brewed, Howard fell in love with something entirely different. His journey's experience. In Italy, Howard noticed that the staff seemed to know the customers and called them by name when their drink was ready. He also noticed that people went to these coffee shops for more than just a quick drink, but to unwind, to socialize, and for some, to get work done. Howard's trip to Italy was a revelation. He later wrote in his memoir that Starbucks originally sold great coffee beans, but not by the cup. They treated coffee as if it were produced, to be bagged and delivered home with the groceries. But, according to Howard, they were missing the heart and soul of what coffee was all about. He felt that, like Italy, they should make coffee an experience rather than a product. Howard was ecstatic until he told the Starbucks founders about his idea, which they quickly shot down. They argued that Starbucks was a retailer, not a restaurant or bar, and that they couldn't simply change their business model and start making drinks in the store. They felt things were going well as they were, so why risk it all to become a cafe? Howard's mood began to deteriorate. Eventually, he realized that his vision of bringing the full coffee experience to America would not be realized through Starbucks. As a result, Howard left Starbucks in 1985 to start his own business. The most common objection he heard to his concept was that Americans would never spend that much money on coffee. Howard's business plan centered on him selling coffee for $3 per cup, even though coffee was typically sold for around 50 cents per cup at the time. One of those investors was so excited about buying Starbucks that he tried to cut it out of the deal entirely and told the Starbucks owners he'd buy it from them. Howard was heartbroken. He was so close to owning Starbucks himself when it was snatched away at the last second, leaving him deflated and depressed. Howard Schultz's story. Howard quickly transformed Starbucks from a place where you could buy coffee beans to a place where you could make and drink your own drinks. He also rebranded his Il John cafes as Starbucks locations, bringing everything under one roof. Howard's dream of bringing the Italian coffee shop experience to America became a reality. When you zoom out and look at the time, you realize how long it has been. Howard discovered Starbucks in 1981. He joined the team a year later. He left the team in 1985 to start his own coffee company. Howard was back at Starbucks in 1987, this time as CEO. He was finally the boss, ready to shape Starbucks' future and trust. As CEO, Howard's strategy could be described as aggressive expansion. They had 17 stores when he took over in 1987. But now that Howard had discovered a viable business model, he had the backing of investors. It was simple to keep reproducing. Starbucks began rapidly expanding its presence throughout the world, not just in the United States. The World Domination. Howard wanted to take Starbucks globally, and by 1998, the company had opened stores in Japan, the Philippines, the United Kingdom, and other countries. In fact, Howard stepped down as CEO in 2000 to focus solely on global domination. Every day, we open 5 new stores. Every 5 hours, a new store opens, 24/7. At its peak, over 7 new Starbucks locations were opened every day, and by 2008, the company had nearly 17,000 locations worldwide. Who would have guessed that millions of Americans would queue up to pay $4 for a cup of coffee? When the financial crisis hit, however, that rapid growth came to a halt, and Starbucks stock price dropped 50% as consumers abandoned their expensive coffee habits. However, the financial crisis was far from Starbucks' only issue. Over the last 2 decades, rapid growth had obscured a sinister problem bubbling beneath the surface. The company's growth and success in many ways obscured mistakes in a company email that was leaked to the public, revealing several issues with the company. This includes customer dissatisfaction. He mentioned that the rapid expansion had diluted the Starbucks experience. Starbucks was basically in bad shape, and the company found itself in serious financial trouble in less than a year. People were unaware that they were insolvent. As a result, Starbucks chose to reappoint Howard as CEO. The future of Starbucks. He'd spent so many years focused on expansion, and now his strategy was to completely halt expansion. Instead, he desired to return Starbucks to its original principles. He wanted to create stores and experiences that were unlike those of most consumer brands. So, first and foremost, he removed automatic espresso machines. They sped up the service while removing the romance and the theater of watching a barista make the coffee. He also brought back things like in-house coffee bean grinding, which gave the stores that coffee aroma. And one of the most significant, unconventional decisions we made at the height of our problems was to close every store in America to retrain over 100,000 people. Many people were shocked, and it sparked a lot of media attention and debate, but Howard felt it was critical to retrain baristas on how to perfectly craft their signature drinks, and in a strange way, the decision was good marketing. Starbucks' story is undeniably one of success, and Howard's rise from poverty to billionaire is remarkable. He saw an opportunity, took it to a new market, and built an empire through hard work and great business strategy. However, what is possibly more noteworthy? There are a variety of industries they could be competing in, which can tell us a lot about Starbucks' future. To begin, in real estate, there is something known as the Frappuccino effect, which refers to a significant increase in nearby property value due to the opening of a new Starbucks nearby. They are able to purchase the property before the neighborhood prices skyrocket. Starbucks, in fact, has a team dedicated to selecting new store locations based on a wide range of demographic and property data. This analytical approach has also helped Starbucks find profitable locations on a consistent basis. There is already a Starbucks in almost every affluent neighborhood, but they will look to expand into new areas they haven't yet reached. There is, however, a second industry. Starbucks is the case. That is rarely discussed and may reveal even more about why Starbucks has been successful and will continue to thrive. And, while I've seen this idea presented in a few places, Customers can add money to their Starbucks account on the Starbucks app and use it to pay instead of using cash or a credit card. This increases your reward points, allowing you to redeem more free drinks. Starbucks is now the most popular restaurant rewards app, owing to its size and loyalty. People aren't scared to keep their money in the app. In fact, there is currently an estimated 1.5 billion in people's Starbucks balances, which is more than 85% of all US banks. Of course, that money will be spent on coffee eventually, but in the meantime, it provides Starbucks with an interest-free loan. This is where things get crazy. A typical bank that handles people's money must keep a large amount of cash on hand in the event of withdrawals. However, because Starbucks money cannot be withdrawn from the app, they are not required to do so. Meaning they can invest heavily in growth in a way that other companies cannot, because they literally have billions of dollars in customer accounts that Starbucks can spend to grow and expand their business. Starbucks now derives 26% of its revenue from products other than beverages, and of that 74%, a sizable portion comes from beverages other than coffee. Their success. The original founders were focused on the wrong thing, which is why Starbucks has done so well since Howard took over. From the moment Howard Schultz became CEO for the first time, they were focused on the coffee and the success of Starbucks, and its future is not just about coffee at all. Starbucks' true product was the experience. Massive 20,000 square foot malls are designed as tourist attractions, where baristas experiment with various brewing methods and create new innovative drinks. So, if you've ever wondered why Starbucks became a coffee company, now you know.